You like to play FPS Battle Royale games in your phone? Well, the touchscreen is a real pain in the ass when you're trying to navigate through that big open world map. That's why in this week's weekend project, we're going to make an attachable left and right trigger button for a phone.
You like playing PUBG? PUBG is a really awesome game. Recently, PUBG teamed up with another company named Tencent to bring their PC game to the mobile platform.
It's really cool how they were able to put the exact same map from their PC game to the mobile platform. Now, the biggest problem when you're trying to play a game like this on your phone is that it's really hard to control. Unlike the PC version, you get to have the precision controls of a mouse and a keyboard, which plays a really huge role when it comes to the competitive atmosphere of the game.
That's why in this week's weekend project, we're going to step up our game by making an attachable trigger for playing FPS shooter games like Rules of Survival and PUBG Mobile.
Here are the things that you will need. First, you'll need a 3D printer. This is a 3D printer that I highly recommend for experienced makers who are planning to start out in 3D printing. Next, you'll need the 3D printed parts that we'll be printing later on. You'll also need 2 metal rivets and 2 Heatshrink tubings as well. For the adhesives, you'll need a foamy type of double-sided padding tape. And for the main component that does all the magic, you'll need a piece from a roll of aluminum duct tape. It's the exact same thing that this dude used that got himself viral. How will you even react if you see a guy fixing your plane with a duct tape? Anyways, for the tools, you'll need a 400 grit sandpaper, a pair of long nose pliers. You'll also need to ask your mom for a pair of tweezers. Oh boy, you really need this later. And finally, this really cute nail file. The narrower, the better.
This project may require a 3D printer, so if you don't have one, fear not, because I also made a non-3D printed version of the tutorial. If you have a 3D printer at home, or let's say you have access to one in your local makerspace, or let's say in your school, I'm giving away the files for free so that you guys could download it and make your own buttons.
You could find the downloadable files from the links below. When you're done downloading, open it with your 3D printer's default slicing software. I'm using Cura for my ANET A6 3D printer. As for my settings, this is what I use for a generic roll of ABS plastic filament. When you're all set, press the export button to transfer the G-code files to your micro SD card. Then insert the card to your 3D printer. Now go to your 3D printer's menu and find the G-code file that you're about to print. If your card hasn't been detected, just press the refresh button. Then select your file once you've found it. And you can leave it once it starts printing the whole set once it's warmed up. You can print them as a whole set, but I would recommend to print it part by part to get a better print quality. It took me around 30 minutes to print the whole set. And voila, there you have it. This is an optional step, but I like to make my project a whole lot smoother and cleaner. There's 2 ways to smoothen out ABS plastic. That's either to use sandpaper like I did, or use the acetone vapor method. I chose the sandpaper method because it's a whole lot faster. Just rinse it with water afterwards. Now for the trigger buttons lever. Grab your drill bit set and find a 2mm drill bit. Use that to make the lever arms hole bigger. The reason for doing this is because we're going to put an axle through it later, and therefore there shouldn't be any friction going in between them. Now cut a piece from your aluminum duct tape, and grab a ruler and a cutter to cut 2 strips with the same width of your lever. While the duct tape, it's more of a sticker, so peel off the paper, then wrap it around the lever. But there's a tiny part that shouldn't be wrapped with foil, and that's in between the 2 lumps. For the lever to come back once it's pressed, we'll need to have springs. Now I did find out that stacking pieces of these foamy double-sided padding tapes makes up a really great improvised spring. Stack around 4 to 5 of these. If your spring tension is too soft, add one. And if it's too hard, remove one. It's really much of a game of trial and error, since not all padding tapes have the same thickness. Now cut it into small segments until you have as small as this. Then put it in between the two lumps. And do the same for the other rocker arm, and there you have it, an improvised spring system. Now for the capacitive clip. This is the main component of the project. Make another improvised spring, but only stack 2 sheets of padding tape. Do the exact same thing, but make it a whole lot smaller. Grab your clip and using your tweezers, stick and position that spring in this exact area. Then cut a strip of aluminum tape with a width of around 1 mm. Using the tweezers, stick the tape from the bottom going to the walls. And be sure it goes on top of that spring. That spring will work as your contact point. That thing will simulate a human finger. So when you press down the lever, there will be a change in capacitance. And that thing would trick your phone into believing that there's a finger touching it. Add a larger square of aluminum tape to increase the surface area, so your phone wouldn't have a hard time sensing those touches on the LCD panel. Then again, grab your ruler and your cutter, then cut a strip of aluminum, enough to wrap around this part with aluminum tape. Be sure that you overlap with the tape that you've sticked previously. Now this part would work as our switch. Once the lever is pressed down, this thing would conduct with it. When you're done wrapping it around, tear off the excess sheet of aluminum. Now cut a pad of double-sided tape so that the conductive sheet would not come in contact with the edge of the phone. Now add another sheet of padding tape to act as a cushion. Once you're done, grab your Heatshrink Tubing, then insert it to your contact point's arm. I did this in order to protect the contact points from getting torn into pieces once the clip is being clipped on the phone. And not to mention, without this, the aluminum could scratch your phone's screen. The heat shrink works as a cushion and as a protection for the clip. Now grab your tiny little rivet and cut down a piece of it using your pliers. And now you have an axle for joining the lever arm to the clip. If you're having trouble putting it together, you could use the end of your tweezers to push the rod in. And that pretty much sums up the whole project. And now you have your phone trigger button. Now all you have to do is to remap and reposition the in-game touch buttons so that the trigger's contact point would be able to trigger the touchscreen.
If you like my video, feel free to press the thumbs up button. Now if you want to see more of my upcoming projects, you could press the subscribe button to stay tuned. Once again, I'm Angelo. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Coming up next, we're going to make a phone case that would make your phone's camera more cinematic. A few months ago, we went to Europe, and I brought my project and my smartphone with me. I took a lot of pictures and clips with it. I was able to take shots I never knew I could even do before.